So we will be doing a harvesting. We have the opportunity, and Marijn Gijsbers, Marijn Gijsbers, right?
You fill this one. My last name again, please.
Gijsbers, no?
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Well, if Jan were here, he would teach you.
He would.
He's always teaching us Dutch words, right? Every conference we learn something new.
I do, yeah.
So my name is Marijn, but now it's working. It's working very well, actually. I will listen to, as you guys know, to Merino or anything that sounds similar. The idea of harvest is not very different from the idea of the study circles. You know, if you would have a dialogue in this large group, then only a couple of people get to talk. So basically the idea is that we share what happened in the study circles here. So throughout these days, we start to build up this idea, this concept of what could end up being the Philadelphia Declaration. And if you have a dialogue, it's always nice when you can see each other. And to be honest, my ego cannot really handle very much all the attention. So would you please turn your chair 90 degrees so you can face the other side of the room? So we can have at least the illusion of a dialogue together. Yeah, just like that. So we could start with either one of the questions, or we could start up just with ideas or concepts or thoughts that came up in the different groups. Is there anybody who would like to go first? All right, great. You're going to get a microphone. And if you would be so kind to stand up, so it's for the people at home who are watching us so they can see you.
Okay, so we were orange.
Please rise.
Orange group.
Orange.
We read the two questions, and then we went back to the first question, and we spent a few moments thinking about it. And the question, to review it, was, in light of compassion, how do the ideas of brotherhood, nucleus, and healing relate to each other? And in light of compassion, so that raised the question, what is compassion? If we're going to talk about in light of compassion, what is compassion? So we kind of spent all of our time on compassion and what it is, and this is what we came up with. It's the nature of the universe. It's what we are. It isn't having pity or feeling sorry for someone. It's not elevating ourselves up here and looking down on someone. It's seeing, being one from the same level. It's the divine within us. It's what we are. And we really felt that this next one is key. It has to find expression through the human person. It's feeling another's pain as our own, as one pain. It's harmony. Compassion is the first step. It's our essential nature. It's the key of the universe, the key. It's transcending judgment. It's discernment. And it's when we function as we truly are.
Thank you. And any questions, any remarks, reflections, maybe from other groups? Because I was kind of curious, since the microphone is still there, you said it's our essence, but it's also the first step. So what do you mean by first step? What is that?
It's, okay, if it's the way we really are, and at the same time, it's the first step. It's the first step to getting back to what we really are. Through compassion, it's like the first step, the key to get back to who we really are, to get rid of all the stuff.
Excellent. And I think there's a brother behind you who wants to help. Would you please stand up, Joop?
Yeah, I think we also said that it's the first step, you know, if we want to do something together as theosophical groups, that first needs to be very clear before we can evolve ideas on brotherhood, nucleus, and healing. That's, I think we said.
All right. So for us working together to get a much clearer picture of what we're actually talking about.
It's a basic thing. And also, you know, because the whole theosophical movement was started not only about the knowledge how the structure of the universe is and works, but especially about the ethics that flows forth from this knowledge. So compassion is the basis or the key of Theosophy, of spreading Theosophy. And that is why we thought it was so important to think about it together for a long time.
Excellent, thank you. So where do we go next? Oh, more hands. Well, I'll let you choose. Please, could you raise your hand again so we can see where to go?
So we were also talking about compassion, and I didn't, maybe I came in a little late here, but there's one, I'd like to go to the etymology or the original meaning of the word compassion. And does anybody know what the original meaning of compassion is, which comes from the Greek? Latin, okay. What does it originally mean? Suffering with. Okay. I think this is important to look at in this context because it is understanding and feeling the pain of humanity and the universe, and everyone on this globe is, we're especially associated with. This is the thing we're trying to get behind us, to get us to move in the right direction, because there's so much pain and ignorance and sorrow on this earth. This is what is really pushing us to educate it, to enlighten it, to know the universal principles, to know the boundless, and bring down this into humanity and educate it. And this will get to the root of pain and suffering of humanity.
Thank you. So, can we go over here?
We took the two questions separately. For the first question, in the light of compassion, how do nucleus, brotherhood, and healing relate to one another? And I started by saying I think they build on one another. The healing is just personal. Then the brotherhood includes everyone, and compassion is universal on a plane beyond my understanding. And other people spoke, and I changed my mind because it was pointed out that healing is for all of us. We all need to be healed. And then we spent a lot of time talking about the cell. The nucleus is in the cell, but within the cell there's a lot of diversity. And if it becomes divisive and all of the diversity starts dying, the nucleus cannot survive without the cell wall and the diversity within the cell. So we need that. And the second question, what is the relationship of a nucleus of universal brotherhood to a divided and divisive humanity? What is the relationship? And we said, one is the spiritual inheritance, and the other is the disease of separateness. The metaphysical differentiation is natural, but divisiveness is not. We don't need that. And what is a divided society like if there's no nucleus? Or at least people trying to form a nucleus. That is our mission. I came here not because I can heal humanity, but because I want to be one person in the process. And that's what we are all here for. Thank you.
Thank you. Where do we go next? Oh yeah, there was one group that had a fantastic scribe who diligently, out of pure compassion, put the questions on the board, but she put one extra letter in there. Instead of ideas, she wrote down ideals, which is what was really interesting. So our conversation took a different turn.
It was kind of interesting. So I think we touched on many aspects of what people have shared, but one I could sort of highlight here is the idea, the healing idea of us being on our own, trying to balance out being of service to humanity and healing it, but healing ourselves and being on our own inner journey to reach that inner consciousness and come from a place of a spiritual level. So we're all on our own journey to discover, what does that mean? In practice, what are these ideals, these teachings that are ideals and inspire us and motivate us? How do we transform that alchemically into who we are to reach these levels in ourselves where we really are of service? And we do really learn from our experience. So I think that it's important to evolve this. I'm going to just share this, an inner practice with ourselves, where we become more aware, more self-reflective of what our own motivations are and where we're coming from and what we're doing. And at the same time, you can get over preoccupied with that and not be of service to people. So I think there's a balance, a harmony, and that's a lot of what we're talking about here is harmony, being harmony with the one, being harmony with the self. And I think it's very important to work on oneself and at the same time do all one can to heal the disharmony that one finds oneself in situations. And to learn from that experience. Might have the right motivation and not very much knowledge about how to help and actually hurt. So we need the right motivation, as HPP said, and the right knowledge, which comes from a open-ended, wonderful journey of our own growth and spirituality, and helping humanity and ourselves along the way. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, actually I do. Yes, since I had a thought right now too that when we were discussing, so I'm not standing with the back, when we were discussing within our group these ideas of brotherhood, compassion, and how we can be of this force for the healing force for the world. As we work together, especially like what we were talking about with regard to ITC, we aspire all of us towards this hope for humanity. And this is something, by working together, we can help each other by inspiring each other to continue doing this work. Not just together, but also individually. We become example for each other as well. And this is so essential, because I think, when we look at the world with all that suffering and egotistic attitudes, it sometimes can be discouraging. But seeing us all together here, those people who actually care for humanity, that's inspiring for each one of us. And I think this is also a great force for us to be together.
So, where do we go next? Erwin?
Okay, in our group, I think when the word compassion was mentioned, everybody started to talk about that. And we did during the whole study circle, but we also thought about the relation between the different themes: Nucleus, Brotherhood, and also healing and the divided humanity. And compassion is a sort of red thread through all these different aspects. We started also by thinking about what was said in the presentations, and to reflect on that universal brotherhood is a fact, and also that at the same time the lack of realization of that fact and awareness of that fact is of course also the origin of a sick world and that needs healing. And that actually that to realize universal brotherhood, that is a sort of state of mind. It's an attitude, and the deep realization of it could be also called compassion. So that there is a unity, that everything is connected, and also we thought about also the readings, and somewhere in there is that we are all from the same cosmic fabric. And then someone shared a nice example. I think the origin was from Joy Mills, who gave the example of when you are baking cookies, you have just one plate of dough, and then you make stars of it, you make flowers, you make trees, you make animals, but it's all from the same cosmic fabric. And that's so we tend to see only the different forms, but it's just forms. It's just forms coming from the same universal brotherhood, the same unity. So, and actually we connected all those things together. So that, and we talked about compassion. We said, what is compassion? We also, I can continue your list from your group, Nancy, that it is not pity, it's not feeling sorry for someone. It's not enough to just affirm that another one is miserable. You just have to also think, okay, how can we really end this, and how can we come out of it, and how can we work together and learn from each other that compassion is a noun or not a noun, it's a verb. It's something you have to do. It implies service also. You have to work for others, and then then help will come also from those that already are working in the same spirit. Something that was also mentioned in one of the presentations. And actually by practicing compassion, that we are working to heal others, and also we are working healing ourselves. And actually that is also what Universal Brotherhood is about. So we ended just by some statements. We are thinking about what can we do for the declaration. Well, just being a brother, that's what we have to do. Being a brother in the most universal sense of the word. And yeah, being a nucleus, being whole as much as we can. And yeah, so that's, if any additions? Yeah? Okay.
I hope. Being a brother. Who's the next brother that we're going to pass the mic to? All right.
Okay. We, of course, also went into compassion, what a nucleus is, and a lot of it's been covered by many of you. So I'd like to maybe start with a few thoughts that we explored that maybe we haven't quite covered yet. One question came up was, okay, if healing's needed, what's the disease? You know, what needs to be healed, really? And one thought that came up I thought was really interesting was there are a lot of groups in the world that are practicing, from their point of view, brotherhood, but it actually, in a sense, divides us because they're limited. And three thoughts on this were tribalism, religious sectarianism, and what was the third one we had here? Oh, ideology and politics. So the panacea for that is, we felt, are the universal ideas that Theosophy presents. That's kind of the glue that holds the nucleus together. Because it's the universalism that will free us from all our divisions in life when we see we're one with others. And so one of our group pointed out that the nucleus really begins in the absolute. It's at the highest level. And it emanates down, and each of us is has that center within us. Another thought was that one of us gave an interesting example. He's a teacher, and he spoke of a student of his who after class came up to him crying. I mean, he had tears in his eyes, and he said he came from a family that really had no education. I'm kind of simplifying this, but he's here studying all these great ideas, reading, great thinkers and stuff, and he feels really alone. And it was pointed out in the group that the fact is the nucleus isn't something that we have to go gather people around us. When we start to study these ideas, we begin to vibrate with others really all around the world. And actually, if we can perceive this, we're not alone. And that can be a great help to us. We began the day, this was a little different. One of us said, well, nucleus, that seems like kind of a domineering force, so, which was interesting. So we tried to deal with what a nucleus really is, rather than some outside dominant force. It's something that comes from within. It was mentioned, Judge wrote an article, every person a center, so each of us is a nucleus, as well as together we're a greater force. Does anyone else, we covered so much, I feel a paucity here of, does anyone else from our group want to add? You added something before. Cecil, you have anything, or we're good? Anyway, maybe that's enough.
Great. That's a lot of thoughts. And,
we
had
a lot of.
We don't have to solve the puzzle yet, right? So, but when we put the thoughts out there, we can share them. We can think about in the next study circles what we would like to elaborate on, question about.
Yeah, I think we all left very inspired from our interchange today, so it was great.
I think so too. And curious to follow up on whatever came up, right? So where do we go next? Have we had all the groups so far? Great. I'm kind of curious, if I may, because Kim, you were the first speaker, yeah? And I mean, what was so nice is that you took us on the journey of your thought process, right? So I'm just kind of curious. Could you share one or two thoughts that you have now after the study circle you were in and hearing the other lectures? Just to round this one up?
Yes.
It doesn't have to make sense, just a thought, something that...
Well, I'm glad they don't need to make sense.
We're still building.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was deeply inspired by people's serious approach to the notion of true compassion. Just in the study group I was in, when people would mention the word compassion, it seemed like an active kind of word in a deeply philosophic sense. And I think maybe I was just prepped for hearing it more because of the idea from the voice of the silence that compassion is the law of laws. It was, that quote itself was mentioned at least 3 times in our study circle, and it just kept coming out at me. And in Olga's presentation, and in, I'm not going to pronounce it right, Joop. Also, just the incredible intensity of the living word of compassion in there. It just seems so remarkable to me that really deepening an understanding of compassion, that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Excellent, thank you very much. Maybe as an example, Herman already said that we spent a very long meeting yesterday. We didn't cover even half of the agenda as a board. And on Sunday afternoon, we'll have another meeting. And this is really good because the thoughts that we left with yesterday, over time, they crystallize out. New processes, new steps, new ideas form in our mind. And that's the process as well that we want to go through together in these days. So that's why I say maybe it doesn't make sense yet, or maybe it's not a finished thought, or maybe we cannot make the connections yet. But when we keep sharing our ideas and our thoughts, we will see that we will start building something together in these days. So anybody else who would like to share a thought before we wrap this one up? Yep, over here.
Speaking of compassion, as we have been, I'm reminded that many years ago, I was reading a book in philosophy for preparation for a class. And I came across something really quite marvelous. It's the Stoic philosopher. Here's what they said. They said, if you're someone walking down a road, and you see someone by the side of the road who's miserable and suffering, walk off the road, sit down with him, and commiserate with him for a while. And then after you've befriended him and commiserated with him for a while, then begin to help him step back. Because the greatest gift you can give him or her is a wholesome perspective. That's the beginning of healing. For them to see maybe their problem isn't solvable immediately, but if they can see that they have in their own command a perspective by which they can look at their suffering, it begins the process of healing because they can see beyond themselves. So I thought that to me was very helpful as a kind of paradigm.
Thank you very much for sharing this food for thought. Oh, there's some more from Richard here.
I will leave you with one word: discipline. And what's a common name, or a common association and name other for discipline? Disciple. In order to really to heal, etc., discipline is absolutely necessary. One has to get one's 7 principles, 7 elements, if you will, in order, and this takes discipline. And this is essential for health as well as brotherhood, nucleus, etc., etc.
All right, any other thoughts? Jean?
Thank you. It's not even my thought. I was just listening to what everyone was saying, and because I just like to write, what came out of it, because it appears all of the groups kind of got hung up on compassion, and from what they said, this idea came out that, again, and it was expressed by everyone, compassion in action is healing. It's a healing force. Compassion as healing is the one life in harmony, and compassion as the one life in harmony is the ultimate nucleus. Just a thought.
Even more food for thought. Thank you very much.
I was thinking...
Could you stand up, please, so they can film you?
Regarding healing and Theosophy, I realized, well, it was bothering me during our meeting that proper Theosophy, proper application of Theosophy requires action. We must act, not just talk about it. However, proper action of Theosophy requires not only knowledge and tools, but requires discipline and requires correct control not only of our words and actions, but also of our thoughts. And this goes directly to the concept of healing and the divide in humanity that we're seeing. Without constantly disciplining our thoughts, our words, and eventually our actions, we cannot apply Theosophy correctly. Our actions will not be correct, and the end result will not be the right one. So if we have the right motivations, we can heal, we can unite, and we can apply that compassion, provided that we have discipline first within ourselves and down to the thought level, because that healing begins with thoughts. Words are exacerbation of thoughts, and actions are exacerbations of words, in effect. Thank you.
One more?
I have just this thought that keeps running through my mind, and we'll probably, okay. As Theosophists, we tend to talk, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk. And then we're going to come up with a Philadelphia Declaration. We're going to all agree on this. Well, the world is in chaos right now. And what can we do right now to help? Because we're at a point where it's everything that we are talking about is so needed. And we can keep talking forever, but it's time to really come together and do something. So.
Thank you. All right. Joke?
Can I react on this? We have to think about the fact that 40 years ago, a happening like this would not be possible, because people from different theosophical organizations didn't trust each other. That is trust where April talked about. What we have done the past years is making it happen that people from totally different lines, and you have the same in society, in the world in general, but we practice here from different theosophical lines the fact that we respect each other, talk to each other, think with each other, and study in circles. And we did that in 10 years. So by doing that, we are placing in the mental field of this earth a voorbeeld, an example, how things can be solved. And we are here and we love each other and we eat with each other. We don't even remember how it was 50 years ago, where we were instructed to hate each other. Yes, and that is what we have done. We brought down those barriers. And this is an example for the United States or United Nations or whatever. Yes, United States as well. Yes, how to live with each other. It is seemingly unimportant, but what we did is very important if you look to the core of what we do. Yes?
Maybe I can share one thought myself that I'm having now. It comes from the job that I've had for far too long time. What I always notice in these study circles, for so long as we have them, that we're all very good at sharing thoughts, but there's almost never any questions. And so many things have been coming up here. I just would like to encourage everybody, if there's a thought that you heard from somebody here that you think, hey, but that's interesting. That tickles my mind. I would like to know more about that. Then find that person for dinner and question. ask about, what did you mean? Where's that idea coming from? Because we always have a very quick translation to our own perspective of things, and we think we understand where it's coming from. But when we start asking questions, it's usually an opportunity to learn a lot more from each other. And it's also a very good stepping stone to work together even better. So now that we have the food for thought, maybe Jonathan, you can give us some instructions about the food for the vehicle and the next steps. And